What did I tell you guys about locking the door? Anyway, I'm here now. I want Ice's way. You two bands. Yeah, don't think that because you're just a melonhead, I don't know why you're looking. Right, so, oh, wait, hang on, let me just, Don't ask me how that works. There we go. Oh, hey, could you get the remote over there? It's just under your seat. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Don't know why it has a phone's OS, but, I don't know. I don't own this office. Alright, then. So what do all four of us in this room have in common? Well, it's kind of hinted to by the picture, but we all have a copy of Forza Horizon 4 on Steam. I bought a copy for myself years back, I gifted Bands and Tony a copy, and I was going to gift Benji a copy, but he just bought it on the spot when he saw how low the price was getting. So, thanks for that. That's the whole reason I could get Bands a copy. But, either way, so you've probably heard at this point how they're going to handle the end-of-life support. And the main thing is that they're going to end the monthly seasons and make every hard-to-find car obtainable through backstage passes, which you can get by getting Forza Fun points. Right? So that sounds pretty cool. However, there are a few achievements in this game that you can only get in the monthly playlists, and those are going to be forever unobtainable, including the hardest challenge in the Forza Horizon series, Encore, which is a very, very simple achievement. 100% a festival playlist. Now, the final festival playlist doesn't begin until the 25th. So what I'm thinking is that we all try to collectively 100% this next festival playlist. However, it's not going to be easy. This is the schedule that we're going to need to do. Our sessions will start at this time, 1 PM for me, and this time for you guys on the left and right side of the pond. And we're going to have to show up for these initial days. We're probably going to end up showing on the next days as well. But even when we're not showing up, you guys have to attentively be checking the game because of this. These daily challenges are a nightmare, and either have an expiration time of 2 days or 3 days. Could be 3, it's probably 2. I don't want to check considering we don't have any more chances to play around with. So, you guys are going to have to be attentively checking the game even when we're not in sessions, because if one of you misses one of these, our whole plan has gone tits up. Those were the more important details to get out of the way, but some more things you may like to know. It's going to end on August 22nd, so almost when I become 19. We hopefully won't have any roadblocks in our real life unless something pops up, because this is the summer break for all of us, no matter where you are, which is represented by those novelty mugs. And if we do end up getting it, I feel like it would be pretty nice to showcase the achievement on our Steam profile, just so we can, like, remember this whole expedition we've done, because I can imagine that it's not going to be as simple as this meeting is going to make it sound. Right then, so that was all the info I wanted to tell you beforehand. Could someone turn off the TV so we could save our power? Ah, yes, thank you. You didn't forget where you put it. That's nice. Oh, right, and one more thing. See that paperclip on the table? Can someone flick it at me? You'll see why in a moment. That right there is a video that was initially only seen by 3 people. Those being the 3 people you see in this clip. Benji, Tony, and KC, who I accidentally thought was called Bands in the video, but nope, that's just his brother. And if you were paying attention to the video itself, you'd know exactly why I'm here. We're hunting for the Encore achievement. Out of all of the Forza Fun achievements, Encore is the highest in the food chain. It requires you to fully 100% a playlist with no exception. which many players deem next to impossible because of how many things there are to keep track of. But how hard is it really? Well, over the next month, me and 4 of my friends that I all bought the game on a sale, we're gonna find out. Welcome to the incredible, tragic, unbelievable, and inconceivable tale of the Encore project. Before we can entirely dive in, we need to get the players through the prologue. By the time I got them all the games and made the announcement, there was 5 days until the playlist began. Now, Benji had already made it past the prologue beforehand, KC shot past it in a few days, but Tony was an interesting case because he had to burn a little bit of time finishing off Doom so he could make space for this game on his hard drive. And this goes for the entirety of the video, he was also using this fucking thing. The prologue isn't exactly that long, but it could take quite a bit of time for someone who doesn't know what they're doing. And by the end of it, Benji had finished the prologue, KC had finished the prologue, but Tony needed an extra day. So Tony was running on borrowed time. Great, we haven't even started yet and we've already got an issue. This is gonna go swell! This is where it all began. And admittedly, it got to a fantastic start. I was the first person to complete all of the danger signs and the main Forzathon mission. KC also got the main Forzathon mission done as well, even before I did. After all of that, Benji would connect to our game, and we would start our first proper tournament. The trial is a very simple concept. Basically, there are 6 AI opponents you face off with, and they're all unbeatable. You, as a team, collectively have to get more points than them. So I saw what I thought was the car requirements, and noticed that I could use the Jaguar C-Type. And so, because it was a DLC car, I told everyone else to tune up a Jaguar C-Type, only to realize that was the wrong car. So yeah, we spent all that time tuning it for nothing. Fortunately, we did get absolutely carried in the actual trial, so the first proper event is down with us not really doing anything. I'm a great storyteller. The next challenge we took on fell into the Classic Rally D-Class category. And considering that the Mini Cooper is a selectable car, I don't think I even really need to say how this went, because that'd be a little bit redundant. The next championship was very simple. A-Class Extreme Off-Road. And you know what that means. We all got to use the Warthog! And funnily enough, using a fictional 4-wheel drive vehicle, which is at the peak of its class, is, a lot stronger than the ones that are bound by reality. Who would have guessed? Now at this point, Casey had something to do. So he said his goodbyes for the day, and in his place, Tony had finally completed the prologue, which meant that he could continue with us on our journey. And it just so happened that for the third one, he got to use the Warthog as well. He just had to tune it up to S1. Me, however, I decided to have a bit of fun by using the rarest car in the game, Big Final Fantasy 15 car! There wasn't really much to say about both this and the previous championship in terms of difficulties because we ended up steamrolling both of them. And just like that, for the majority of us, that concluded this week's free challenges. So it seemed like we were off to a pretty good start. Although for me, there was still one more thing to do, which I was saving until last. The Summer Games. Now, the weekly games were unique in the fact that even if you lost against the other team, you'd still get the prize. But I wanted to make a little bit of a challenge for myself. That being to see if I could get through, not just while dodging a single loss, but while dodging a single dropped set. And if I lost that, well, isn't it obvious? I'd eat an entire sachet of noodle chili. I was actually originally going to use the Renault Clio for this, but then I saw that another car qualified, and I decided, That'd be funny. And I went with the fucking 2009 Vauxhall Corsa. Honestly, it was a stupid decision from me, and it gave us repercussions by giving us a clean sweep. Yeah, this also wasn't even a challenge. The enemy team were completely incompetent and they had no clue what was going on. And just like that, the first week had been cleanly swept for me. Now, granted, both Casey and Tony were a little bit behind because of the points that they decided to drop off, but we'd be helping them on separate days, so I would still say that this was a very successful starter day. Hello, what?! Benji started work on finishing the Forza Fun weekly mission. At the same time, Tony started trying to complete some of the missions he wasn't a part of. He started with the classic rally, but he was having some issues due to not picking the right car. At the same time, I was asked to help someone with the Titan. I did so using an A-Class Jaguar I-Pace, but he was using an S2 Porsche Cayman. I still whooped his ass. Tony was still struggling, so I came back to check on him, and he got the tune all wrong. Not getting any weight reduction, not getting the rally tire compound, and his biggest sin of all... disgusting! After redoing the first championship with Tony, there was something I noticed. He wasn't very good. The best place he got in our initial races was 7th place. Of course, he hadn't been playing the game for that long, so I was actively teaching him how to improve, but that more so put it into perspective how much he had to improve. Hell, here's the best example for it. Near the end of the 3rd race for the Warthog Championship, he was actually doing really good and was this close to netting us a 1-2 finish, until he completely overshot a ramp with a checkpoint on it. At least I did still win, so that counted as an overall victory, because 1-12 finishes still count as wins because of the bonus points for the winner. As Benji had finished pretty much everything that he had to do, he decided for a bit of fun to try out one of the optional Fortune Island Championships, which require the driver tars to be expert difficulty to beat. The car class and type were B-tier classic muscle. A discipline we both have zero knowledge on, and considering the map was mostly going to be on dirt, which is normally really hard for muscle cars to use, how did it go? Pretty well, actually. I ended up winning the first 2 races while we both got to grips with the really weird way that the muscle cars handled grip, which automatically got us an overall win. But it wasn't really that easy due to how little was needed to lock these cars into a slide. We both ended up with being just bite markers in the final race, but one of the driver tars crashed at the very end, losing just barely enough for me to come 10th and steal 100 points for the driver team. That was funny. But yeah, outside of that, this was more of a learning experience for both of us. As we were doing that, Tony was trying to pass that week's danger sign. Did he do it? No, not even close. He struggled to get even somewhat close to the required distance the whole time. We'll definitely need to help him out. I'd overall say that day 2 wasn't as successful of a day as day 1, but we still made some decent progress. We also found out that you actually need to do a few unranked races to be able to do one ranked race, which is one of the requirements for the playlist. But we have a full month to do it, so we're not worried. At least for now. After a full day of trials and tribulations, Tony has made some really good progress for the danger signs, knocking out the first 2. He only needs one more speed zone to finish this week's danger signs, but he just can't get a grip of it. Around this time, Hamm will join the VC to try and assist Tony with this final speed zone, telling him how much of a run-up he can get and which car to use for it, which was an EV110 that was already tuned. But the best that Tony could get with this advice was 101 miles an hour, 9 off the target. Hamm decided that he'd help Tony as much as he can and departed, wishing him the best of luck. Hours later, Tony would then report to me that he got a record of 109 miles an hour. This is haunting him. Tony decided that enough was enough after a full day of attempting the speed zone, and decided that he was going to make it the last thing he finishes for the sake of his own enjoyment. Nothing else happened outside of that. KC was absent today, so he's the only one who still has to finish his daily tasks. I also let the voices win. I 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 let the Hamm decided to give a bit more assistance to Tony, as he was falling behind with only 3 days to go. The first course of action was to help him get the photo challenge done, which should be the easiest part. One problem though, Tony doesn't have any rods in customs. One stop to the auto show later and Tony picked up a Ford F100 to pass the photo challenge with. Considering how often you get given cars and wheel spins, I'm honestly at a loss for words. I have like 12 rods in customs that I never bought. At this point, Tony only needed to finish the trial and the speed zone he was worrying about to go to finish off the playlist. We both agreed that he should enter the trial on his own, due to him likely being put on a team that will carry him. Tony's first attempt at the trial seemed to go really well, as he had a team that could sweep the first round, but then most of the heavy hitters left, causing for Tony's team to lose overall. He did run it back on his next attempt though. Now all that's left to do is the final part of the Forzathon challenge, and that dreaded speed zone. Outside of that, no progress in the group has been made. It's also worth mentioning that KC was finally going to get back on tomorrow, so tomorrow we're going to be focusing on him, and hoping to God that Tony makes it through the speed zone. Today was the day that KC came back to finish all the playlist objectives he still had to do. Hamm accompanied him to finish them as well. They both finished off the 2 street race events together while having a friendly discussion about Need for Speed lore and how stupid it is. Especially the cop ending for Need for Speed Rivals. Look it up if you don't know what I mean. We both went through the last weekly tournament together, but I decided to have a little bit of fun and use a car that I have very little experience with. The Bowler. How did it go? Remarkably. Turns out, this thing is an absolute machine when it comes to acceleration and speed in this category, as it absolutely demolished all of the purposefully built rally trucks. Even KC's maxed out Toyota Baja truck, although he did get checkpoint shunted twice, so that could have played into it a bit. Afterwards, Hamm decided to take a bit of a break, as all that KC needed to do from here were the summer games. KC's first venture into the playground games would end up being a major success. The first game was won with a comfortable lead, causing 2 of the players to rage quit. In the second round, he would then end up protecting the last human by standing in between them and a zombie while being healed to survive a full round. The enemy team didn't last that long in comparison either. Flag Rush was a bit of a dud, as KC wasn't that good at Flag Rush, but with only 2 other players on the enemy team, it wasn't really that much of a challenge, and it ended a 3-0 sweep for KC. We also got an update in regards to Benji, which could potentially end the 100% dream, that being that on August 1st, Benji starts a trip that we didn't know about beforehand. That will last a full month. He could still potentially log in to finish the achievements, but that all depends on if the game plays well under a hotspot connection. That now adds the list of players in danger to 2, half of the expeditioning crew that we've brought on this journey. Here was when all 4 of us collectively decided to get a signature group photo. We ordered it by the skill level of everyone at the time according to the game's ratings. And we decided not to do a jumping shot, as in my opinion the jumping shots are far too overrated. And we came out with this. Immediately afterwards, all hell broke loose. We got a lot of really funny pictures too as I tried to escape to the main festival site. Take a look at some of these. At that point, everyone decided to clock out for the day. Today was the final day to complete any of the week's playlist challenges. Unfortunately, in the nick of time, Tony managed to finally get that dreaded speed zone done, with 3 miles an hour to spare no less. That moves him out of the danger zone, and with that, Everyone has completed this week's challenges and have gotten to the next part smoothly. Let's hope that tomorrow there aren't any unexpected twists to our still quite strong group. A new week had begun, and that meant that a new season had been fall on the Horizon Festival, this time being autumn. Hamm was the first guy to get going by immediately crushing all of the speed traps and zones. Despite there being one particular speed trap which initially gave him trouble, he eventually just found out he was using the wrong car for the job. Before everyone joined, Hamm set his sights on that week's Forzathon challenge, which required you to use the mini monster truck in particular, which is a car that Hamm isn't very fond of, especially considering that the car only goes to a pathetic 96 miles an hour at start. It would take a little bit longer than expected due to some strings of AI brilliance, but after about 45 minutes it was done and dusted. Hamm would then start to go through all of the things he was yet to do, and he noticed that he could use his 205R for one of the championships. So he gave one of his spares to Tony and did it together with him. Enough to even win a race with Hamm blocking the AI, leading to an overall 1-2 finish. At this point, KC would then log in, increasing the convoy size to 3. They decided to knock out the playground games category together, as the car's type is listed as track toys, and Hamm has one of the best track toys in the game, the Ford Supervan 3. However, that match would have some of the worst loading screens that any of us had ever seen, leading to a 15-minute wait for just one loading screen. The player counts would slowly start to shrink until it was only us 3 and 2 other players. However, then, we would get a twist that absolutely nobody was expecting. Tony's game crashed, and then the game immediately loaded to the next stage. The laggy player was Tony the entire time! The last remaining player would then disconnect, leading to Hamm and KC getting an early victory for the mission. Tony would then later rejoin, and then the group would later attempt the trial, which required you to use an S1 tier rally car. The first round led to Hamm having his aim thrown off by a flying hay bale, Jesus Christ! He would then eventually recover it to 6, which was enough points for all the players to breeze through. The second round was a bit more uneventful, as 4 of the drivers were dominating the other drivatars, leading to a comfortable win and a 2-1 victory. But then, something really bizarre happened. Tony would then randomly disconnect in the final game after accidentally shunting Hamm off the track, causing for him to disconnect from the mission at the final stretch. And Hamm, knowing that he couldn't do anything, would then put down the controller and sit back for a bit. Only to then realize that the game had an AFK check. Hamm got disconnected alongside Tony, and only KC got the credit when everything was all said and done. Hamm would then proceed to have an hour-long streak of shit teammates that didn't know what they were doing, causing for the group to then drift apart for the day. Hamm would then end up getting his things together in the last 2 championships on his own terms. Today, Hamm decided that he wanted to help out Tony with any missions he may have missed, in which there were 2, the cross-country championship and the road one. They started with the road one, as Tony was able to reuse his Warthog. Hamm initially decided to give a bit of variety by using a Toyota Hilux, but after falling behind in the first round, he restarted while using the Warthog. For the first round, the front runner got a little bit too far ahead, but Tony was holding on to just enough points to save the team until he got checkpoint shunted, which was going to be a theme today, as it happened for 4 out of 6 of the games he would then play. The second and then third rounds were really tight, but Hamm did eventually clutch a win on round 2 and 3, giving credit for the overall victory. The Road Championship required you to use an A-Class Jaguar. Hamm already had the perfect car for this, the I-Pace. He told Tony that he would be front-running regardless of what happens, so he should just pick the rental car. However, Tony didn't get the option for the rental car. He got the option for the host's car, which meant that he got to use the I-Pace as well. Needless to say, the championship was an absolute breeze. even including a 4th place finish from Tony in the second round. For any astute viewers out there, you may notice that there's a certain player which I haven't talked about in a while. Benji. And to cut a long story short, he didn't come back. He didn't find a way to connect while on holiday. He didn't even contact us while he was there outside of YouTube comments. Benji, in the server, went radio silent. And he never revealed his progress. And the only thing we can assume from that is that he didn't try to log on, and he didn't try to do the daily challenges. So, in turn, Benji was the first to fall. Due to how sudden I realized that, I decided, hey, why not give KC a reminder? He does sometimes have to kind of be reminded every now and then, like I did beforehand. So, I went to go and remind him, and then this happened. Casey confidently said that he had 1 hour left to get the daily challenges done. But there's just one problem. We live in the BST time zone. And do you know what time the challenges reset on the BST time zone for? 15:30. He thought he had an hour longer than he actually did. And when I broke the news to him, his reaction was simple. And just like that, we lost 2 expeditioners to the wayside due to them not being able to keep up with the daily challenges. I had a feeling they'd be the toughest things to keep up with. Now our only hope for more than one completion is in Tony. And he's not having the best time either, as he's still been struggling with this week's trial for a few days now, just like he was struggling with the speed zone. But this one's pure luck rather than pure skill, so who knows whether the game's gonna give it to him. At this point, Tony still hasn't gotten the trial done, and there are only 3 more days where he has a chance to do them. But surely, considering we were on the doorstep of it before, it can't be that hard, can it? Well, this session was an absolute tragedy. Not a single thing ended up going right. Whether it be checkpoint shots, people picking the rental cars, deadweight teammates, me missing checkpoints due to human error, people near the top leaving when we almost won, deadweight teammates, random disconnections, deadweight teammates, badly executed ramps, poor results during the final stage. Oh yeah, and did I forget to mention that we kept getting deadweight teammates? Yeah, we didn't get a single successful attempt in our hours of playing, and we didn't have much time to get it done either. It got to the point that Tony started resenting the game and slowly started losing interest as a whole. I really hope that there was something that could bring this around, because we were now being choked for time. No progress has been made. At this point, morale in the group was extremely low. We needed to get through the trial. We only had today and tomorrow to pull it off as well. And as you can imagine, when the day started, the attempts were more of the same. Shitty teammates not doing what they're doing, throwing the entire thing. Something had to change. And it had to change fast. But there was seeming to be no hope towards a save of any kind. Right when we get close to a point, someone would make a stupid mistake and throw it all away. We didn't need just a lucky lobby. We needed a savior. And you know what? We got that savior. Wait, hang on. Where is he? You said there'd be a savior, but there's nobody there. Wait. There's nobody there! Yep, due to a paradoxical shift which I can only chalk down to divine levels of luck, our matchmaking glitched out and we got put in a lobby where it was just me and Tony. And if you remember from the team matches before, if one of us comes in first and the other comes in last, the team still wins. But this still wasn't guaranteed. I needed to get those 2 wins. And even though I was way too familiar with the track, that didn't mean it was going to be easy. And yet, against all odds, I whooped their ass. If anyone wants proof that I am justified in talking down my teammates, there you go. After the team's morale had booked a hotel ticket in hell for the past few days, this sudden shift of domination really sparked something in the group. Or at least, what remained. Sure, there was only 2 of us left, but we weren't going to let this slip away no matter what we were thrown. Not without a fight. Either way, with that victory, me and Tony could breathe a sigh of relief, as we had both completed all of that week's missions. Although, there was something off about this. 4 had entered like us, and now only 2 remained. Now that we're at the halfway point, can we get through another half with half of our team cut out of the picture? The land is covered in snow, the lake is frozen over, and the land starts to drop below freezing temperatures. This can only mean one thing: winter's here. Now, the winter season got off to an incredible start, as both me and Tony immediately started knocking out the ones that you could do solo, with Hamm only needing to retry a single speed zone, taking out all of the festival danger signs in under 5 minutes. Although one thing to note is that the track for the Forza Fons mission requires you to do with the exact same final track as the previous week's trial. And if that wasn't enough of a PTSD dose, how about the fact that both Benji and Casey's drivatars were the front runners? Yeah. Tony also managed to complete the online adventure, which finally puts him on level playing field with Hamm's overall completion. Just something else to add on top of this incredible steamroll that both of them had. Tony decided to call it quite early in the day though, due to having to attend a few things. But the pair of them had gotten so much done in one day that it really didn't matter. Hamm did get a look at the car requirements for the objectives though, and he was somewhat concerned by one of them, that being Evo versus Impreza B-Class. As that class of car only really shines when you play it with A-Class, and almost none of the eligible cars can be downgraded enough to fit in the B-Class with snow tires equipped. That could get a little rough, although Hamm's expertise in the snow should help balance this out. We'll see when the time comes. Oh yeah, there was also a bit of a technical issue when I was editing this, because I made all these transitions before I made the full video, and I accidentally typed in the wrong percentage, so I'm just gonna skip this one. If there's one word that I could use to describe how the day went, it would be domination. The only hiccup was that the day started a little late as Tony was coming back from the gym. We started out with the trials, because a lot of the cars that had to be used for the Dirt Championship could be reused for the trial. So I could finally get use out of my 2-2 STI. The trial was the polar opposite of last week. Considering there was a full Dirt Championship with slower cars, that made it harder for the AI to adapt. And I didn't just beat them, I whooped their ass. In the first race, I timed out literally everyone. In the second race, I had to settle for second place due to one of the drivatars boxing me in. And in the third race, I got checkpoint shunted right at the beginning, but I still brought it back with a win by over 2 corners. Moving on to the Rally Championship, we kept that momentum going. But there was something I was noticing. Tony was taking some uncharacteristically good lines. Like, he was taking lines that I would take. Did Tony finally click with the handling? I tested it by standing in front of the AI and watching him drive in the final race. And I was floored. Tony was taking really tight lines, expertly weaving through the checkpoints, and was outpacing the highly skilled drivatars. How is this happening? This is the same guy who spent 30 minutes on the stunt mission in the prologue. He ended up doing so well that he beat all of the drivatars without me holding up the AI at all. I gave him the win on the final straight because, after all of this, he deserved it. Now for the cross-country championship. I gave Tony a choice. Practical or funny? Naturally, Tony chose the funny option, and one backstage pass later, we were both in the Hennessy Velociraptor, and it was pure carnage, causing for the AI to consistently crash, and Tony didn't upgrade his at all, causing for a huge split in the performance of the drivatars. I actually lost the first round due to a second mistake, but the game still gave us that point anyway. It's funny. In the second round, no joke, the car's grip was so shit that it drove us into the ocean, actually costing us the round that time. And then in the final round of Bamberg Castle, and I'm not even joking when I say this, 2 drivatars couldn't fit in the gas for the castle, and while I was looking at it and admiring it, a Velociraptor landed on me and jump scared me. It was carnage, but we first tried it regardless. For anyone curious, here's a screenshot of that jump scare. The penultimate mission we had was going to be really weird, because it was a road championship in the snow where you had to use a daily driving car. And all of those cars were just economy bullshit. All except for one. The Defender. Yeah, I think you can see where this is going, and I don't even need to say what happened, other than pure domination. Although in the second round, when I tried to slow down the AI, they split into 3, closed in on me, and put me through a goddamn blender. You can probably visualize what that looked like in your head. Finally, all we had to do was the playground games. However, I had an idea. If the games let Tony use the owner's car, I could equip the Quartz Regalia, and then he'd be able to use that. Unfortunately, I forgot that I wasn't the host of the convoy, and we only realized that after starting. The game initially seemed to be another one person with bad connection ordeal, as nothing was loading. So we put on a YouTube video on in the background and waited. And we struck gold yet again, as the entire enemy team, except for 2, had left. All of our teammates were still standing when the problematic Joe left, and this time, it wasn't Tony. Both of them progressively left as the game went on, giving us yet another early win, and still leaving me undefeated when it came to the playground games. And just like that, winter was complete. Winter was absolutely the easiest season so far. In fact, we were doing so good that it seemed to awaken something in Tony, as just a few days before he was cursing the game and speaking about how much of a travesty it was. But it seems like after this, he completely came around to the game again. If that's not course correction, then I don't know what is. But now, only one season remained. Spring. A seemingly simple season to plow through until the rain comes. Seemed like an anticlimax, but the truth is far from it. We have no metric for how hard this is gonna be, but all we can do is face it with the same amount of grit we gave the winter season. 4 rented at the beginning, but the autumn leaves claimed half the party. And now all we had to do was trudge through the spring showers, and the achievement was ours. Can we make it to the end? This is it. Everything that we've worked for now comes down to just one single week. So it's rather poetic that the photo challenge required you to take a picture of 3 different drivers, all at the grandstand of the main hub. I got lucky and clipped the left side of a GTR in the photo we took. Tony wasn't as lucky though, he had to settle with a random using an anime RS200 posing in front of us. Not that he's innocent from that himself though. Oh yeah, I also gave Tony something that I was gonna give him after completion, so we could capture it in the photo. But I'll go into more detail about that later, although I probably won't, this is me we're talking about. Now, the danger signs would be a doozy. As for both of us, 2 of the 3 went down by sneezing at it. However, then came the speed zone. It was no problem for me, as I've already beaten the seasonal objectives requirements beforehand. But for Tony, this was a learning experience for him. He was already decently good at the game at this point, but now was a true test to see if he could still hold a high score in the speed zone. And for about an hour, he slowly inched ever so close to that 106 mile an hour goal. 103, 104, 104.99, 105.44, 105.47, 105.56, and then, yeah, my game crashed. And my Discord. And my browser. It took me 3 minutes to get everything ready again, and I shit you not, Tony beat it by almost half a mile an hour off screen after I carefully gave him instructions the entire time. I'd also like to take the time to say this. Computer, fuck you and your free up space to continue, and your Steam has crashed, and you're checking for updates, and you're please log into Discord, and you're welcome to Opera GX, and you're verify using two-factor authentication, and especially your microphone cannot be detected. Fuck you for that! Either way, back on topic. We spent quite a long time on the danger signs, so we didn't have much time to clear anything else out, and we both collectively decided to knock out the Forzathon challenge for the week, which, fortunately for us, was the shortest and easiest out of all 4 that we were tasked with. You could use quite a wide range of cars as well, as the only requirement was that it was a buggy. I thought I didn't have anything cool to use, so I started tuning up an entirely new Polaris, but then I checked through my garage and found
the Flex Blue Monster 4x4.
So, naturally, I went with that. The one required race wasn't a cakewalk, though. I was consistently getting outpaced by one specific driver who I only beat because he bottled it on the entry into the castle on the final lap. The final task for the Forzathon challenge could easily be beat the next day, so we took an early break to leave and get our energy back. Overall, not too much progress, but we still had 6 days beyond this point, so what could go wrong with being just a little bit easy on ourselves? After that damn trial, we both deserve it. This was it. Today would be the final batch day of the entire operation. All that we needed were just a few more championships, and we would both be home free. Just one problem though, Tony revealed quite early on that he would be running a marathon in one day, and he couldn't stay up that late. So, we had to make it fast. Little did we know how much insanity was in store for us on this final day. For the first championship we tackled, it was simple. B-class at most, only French cars. We both went in with Renault Clios, but we noticed something odd. For some inexplainable reason that I have never seen in my 400 hours of this game, the AI was literally invisible. No, I'm not making that up. The AI was not only impossible to see on our ends, but they were metaphorical ghosts and phased through anything we did. Look. Due to the AI being naturally quite good at this track that we were doing, they just about outsped me on the first stage. But due to me having a better understanding of pathing, they eventually went down for stages 2 and 3, banging us a victory in one of the strangest bouts I have ever seen. For the second championship, we were required to once again use B cars, but only B-class cars made by Toyota. However, because of how rare Toyotas are to get in this game, the only one that Tony had was a stock Toyota Supra. I tried to get him to use my 80s MR2 by borrowing it, but he misinputted and had to use the Supra. And I know that there are probably quite a lot of JDM and street racing fans hearing this, so you might want to revert your ears for this next bit. He thought that it was way too slippery, couldn't accelerate for shit, and looked like Squidward's house. Yeah, he wasn't chuffed with the Supra. For the third and final championship, we had a much easier stipulation. B-class buggies. That meant that we could reuse the same buggies that we used for the Forzathon championship. And you know what that means. Now, the first track went well, but for the second stage, they picked that stupid-ass track with the ramps on the craters, which I always hated, because not only was it too tight to be a good track, but you also needed, of all things, good RNG to even stand a chance with the AI on this track due to the ramp slowing them down by about 2 seconds. Needless to say, we didn't get it, and it came down to game 3. But then, something miraculous happened. I'm not sure how, but in far weaker machinery, with everything on the line, and me being a bit slippery with the controls, something awakened in Tony, and he was an absolute monster. Not only beating the AI, but also beating me without any help. I wasn't even that much of a slouch on the track either. Tony was just that good on this specific track. I think even Tony was absolutely dumbfounded. None of us were expecting that, but we were all pleasantly surprised to see it. Now, those marked the end for the seasonal championships, but we still had 3 more tasks to go before we were done, and we decided to get the hardest one out of the way first. And we went head first into the final trial. 70s cars were required, and they also had to be B-class. I'm starting to notice a pattern here, but in case there was an off-road section, I decided to get a car that was quite special for the occasion. The Ford GT70, which had barely seen any use from me beforehand, got a bit of love in this final challenge. We started off, as you would expect, with shit teammates that weighed us down, and it didn't help that the game, for genuinely no reason, decided to put me 3 entire rows extra back, making us have to make up even more space. Fortunately, our annoying teammates wouldn't last long, as per, due to all our other teammates leaving due to thinking that we were all hopeless. However, there was one thing in our favor. This was a street race, and as such, street cars roamed around the map, one driver had an unlucky break, and that gave me a chance to build up momentum and take it to the final corner. We were on the verge of beating the final trial on our first try. And you know what happened? The final track was the tutorial track. Not only an infamously hard stage due to all of its 90-degree turns, but also extremely short, giving me barely any time to find a cut ahead and win. Fortunately, I would get decent enough traffic RNG to force the AI into some unorthodox lines. It was only then when I noticed that the guy who was leading was using the Ford Capri FE, a legend in the Forza community for how mythical and rare it is. I got ahead with only a few corners to go, but both of them were 90-degree turns. And considering that I was in a rear-wheel drive car and couldn't take them at the speed I was going normally, I had to slow down more. And that left the AI and me practically glued to each other for the final straight. All I had to do was hold off the Capri, and then a Ford Transit came out of absolutely nowhere. Wow, look at that timing. It's almost as if it's blocking the road. I had to go briefly off-road to get a good line. It almost led to the AI getting ahead, but I shunted it to the right as I kept on driving, and I was hoping, praying that I wouldn't get a laggy fling. And I didn't. 1 down, 2 more to go. However, at this point, it was starting to get very late for Tony, and he had to pack up his things. But he had just enough time to knock out the showcase remix with me. However, at that point, he would reveal something weird. He had already done the spring games. He told me that it was nothing too special as he ended up getting steamrolled by the other team, but he still got credit, so he didn't care. That did end up deflating me a little bit, but I was only focusing on bringing this all the way to the end so we could say we did it. And that didn't stop us. It helped us. The showcase remix went down without a hitch, and just like that, Tony did it. He'd become the first guy out of all of us to get all of the main tasks completed. It's poetic, really. The guy who had the lowest chance to make it into the end being the guy who did it first. But I knew what I had to do next. The very last goal standing in between me and a completed monthly playlist. I sent my condolences to Tony and the convoy, and I parted ways to start the real fun. Now, I haven't been beaten in a single set
let alone a full game of the Playground game so far. And I wanted to make this interesting. I bet myself all the way at the beginning, if you guys can remember, that if I dropped even a single round, I would eat 3 packets of noodle chili. And I'd come all this way while dodging that with insane reads, great positioning, and laughingstock opponents. How could this all go wrong at the final stretch? I wish I was as naive as I was back then. I connected to a game, sat down, and waited for the loading screen. A minute passes by. Someone seems to have bad connection or something. This might take a bit. 3 minutes pass by. Well, this is odd, but I've sat through worse. 10 minutes pass by. Okay, this is starting to get weird. I haven't waited for this long to do a game before, so clearly the likely player has to disconnect soon. Half an hour passes by. Yeah, this is happening. 1 hour passes by. 2 hours pass by. 3 hours pass by. I had to wait 3 hours for that fast traveling message to disappear. There was someone at the other end who was just as stubborn as I was. It wasn't my teammate. The only thing standing between me and a perfect Playground game streak was another singular player who's as much of a crazy bastard as me. Game on! Round 1 was Team Flag Rush. He was driving a silver Viper with blue stripes. Stylish for sure, but not very good for gravel. He wasn't taking the best lines to try and juke me out either. I was starting as the defender. I kept up a perfect streak. Tap after tap after tap after tap. He wasn't getting a single flag to the point. I can imagine that this must have been driving him as insane as me. However, I let my guard down in the last few seconds, and he took a direct line straight through the trees for 1 point. Good thing he went a little bit too wide then. He ended the round with no points. The round would then shift, as it was my turn to score points. I got up to a solid... He left. This crazy bastard sat in matchmaking for 3 hours to get a single game instead of requeuing. And he leaves the moment he starts losing. Whoa. So, mission complete? You know, I completed the streak, but there was something odd about this. I wanted a proper fight, and a lone car jockey who's just as insane as I am sounded perfect for that. Instead, I was just left completely underwhelmed with nobody else to cheer to. Tony had already made it over the finish line, Benji and KC clocked out weeks ago, and now there was just me, standing on my own in an empty podium with only one thought flowing through my head. You've done well. It was a hollow victory for sure, but a welcome one. There was only one thing left to do after this, and that was to not lose track of the daily challenges, show up once again on the final day, and go out with style.
Hold on a second. You mean no checkpoint shunts?
So that was that, huh?
Yep.
It's over. I can't believe I'm saying this, but we actually made it through the whole thing. You know, I expected there to be more than just the two of us. In fact, I didn't even think out of those 3 it would be you, considering that you started struggling with the tutorial stunt mission, but after you started gaining momentum in the winter and spring seasons, especially with those 2 wins that you got legitimately, do you remember early on when I said that I saw a good player in you, but it would take a lot of time to come out?
Yeah.
Well, even though you don't believe it, you really showed it there, Tony. Why else would you be standing on the other step of the podium with me at the end of this grueling expedition?
Truly.
Is there anything you think you, like, took out of all of this by the end of it?
Well, actually, in the end, I just want to say that while the game has been fun, it's been a wonderful 4 weeks of memorable moments that I've made with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
After all, I wanted to say that I appreciate Benji and Casey and you two for like bringing me into like this new game, as I've never actually played like a racing game before, and this is my first time playing a racing game aside from Asphalt 9, which kind of sucks to be honest.
Although,
But
to be fair, considering that there were a couple of difficulties we had with a couple points of the playlists, I doubt this will be the last time, because I'll probably come up with something in regards to this game at a later point, because, you know, we went through
true.
all this effort and everything. So,
Yeah.
we got the achievement, and that's the end of that. Oh, right, one more thing. Do you have, like, some Steam profile showcase slots which you haven't gotten? Or haven't used at all?
I've used the goddamn game collector with the showcase of my DMC collection.
Well, if you have at least 2 extra slots, near the bottom of your profile, I want you to add an achievement showcase, which showcases on every icon the Encore achievement, and then add a custom info box describing the journey of the Encore project. It's going to be the same thing that I'm going to do, and I just feel like it would be a really nice way to wrap this all up, you know?
Got it.
Alright, it's been fun, Tony. See ya.
See you too.
Don't worry, I promise this outro thing will be quick. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching all the way to the end. If you're listening to this, then you're someone that I deeply respect, because considering that people know me as just the funny dub guy, I genuinely don't expect anyone to watch my variety stuff. In fact, it's the only thing I kind of get anxiety about, considering that people always expect me to be one thing in terms of content, regardless of just being who I want. So, if you made it to here, and don't know who I am, and just watch this for the sake of watching it, then again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I'm sorry that I had to delay the release of this video for a couple of days as well. It's just, it only made sense to release after the playlist was finished, and I actually finished making this video about 6 days before it airs, just in case anything disastrous happens. And plus, I really do hope that that algorithmic boost that I currently have doesn't die down before this releases, because honestly, that would be kind of tragic, considering how this algorithmic boost is bringing a lot more people to enjoy my variety content, which the Heritage for the Future video is proof of. But, yeah, I just wanted to say thanks. I'm glad you came along. You know, when this all started, I was feeling a little, cheeky. That's why I crammed a Kazoo Kid reference into the end of this video.